Good morning. Welcome to the Shepherd Station. We are back in the stockyard, 24 East Church Street on the square in Headland. Come by and see us. Great food, great coffee, good people to hang out with. If you can't come by and see us, go to Mural City Coffee in Dothan. That's where we get all our coffee. They roast in-house. It is a great place. Nice to hang out, good coffee, great people. I want to give, I want to say, hey, we're minus Andy Hughes today. Andy's had some things happen in his personal life. Nothing bad. It's not like he's going through anything, life altering or changing. Just some stuff with some this most recent weather, and it's really taken some stuff out of his house. He's had to take care of that and get that fixed. So he's not with us today. He's unable to be here. He will be back the next time we record. So all you guys that like listening to that Southern Andy drawl, he'll be back next time. Something's happening with
the heck?
I don't know, but we just went fuzzy. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. All right, tech guy.
Sorry.
Anyway, Andy will be back with us. Our prayers are with you, Andy, man. Hope everything goes good. If there's anything you need, all you got to do is call. Outside of that, hey, we're glad to be in the studio today, or what we call the studio. We do this so that we can inspire men to be men again, be men under Christ, and hopefully everybody gets something out of this. I'm going to turn everything over to Thomas today, man.
Yeah,
it's just me and Thomas in here today, and there's some things that I have been doing lately with local churches. Our church did it one time, and a couple others. And I was really. Well, you know what? I'm not even going any further.
Yeah,
Thomas, the show is all yours, man.
No, you're good. So Eric has been around for a long time, obviously. No.
Did you just call me old?
No.
I feel like you just called me old.
No. And today what we're going to do is take some time and hear his story, hear what he's been through, and how God has just moved in his life and changed him to be the man that he is today. Because even though you guys are seeing this side of Eric, obviously he has not always been this way. He's not always been a Christ follower. He's not always been completely passionate and devoted to that. And he's gone through some turbulent times in his life. And we felt like it was important for him to share that on this podcast. And for those of you that don't know, the reason this podcast is happening really is because of Eric. It was something God had given him to do that he felt so strongly about. He approached me about and said, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? And then he approached Andy and did the same. And so this is something that God had given him, and we're here, you're here because of God's vision that he's given him. And so it's important that we hear his story and where everything has led him to this point. And Eric, you said that you were a little nervous. Go ahead and explain why.
Well, I appreciate what you just said. I'm nervous. I don't want any of this to be about me. I do think that there's a story that I have that is, I think it's fairly powerful. You look back and nothing in my past is, exclusive or, something that just is other guys have not gone through. It's just another example of a guy I believe God could use because he did such powerful work in me. And I don't want anything to ever take it as this is all about Eric. That's not what I want.
Right, of course. Well, your testimony, anybody's testimony is important, and it doesn't make it all about them, but everybody has a story, that they have the ability to share. And when they share it, it inspires others to possibly say, well, maybe if that person has seen breakthrough, maybe I can too. And so it's important that we share that story. And you have an incredible story that I think a lot of people will connect with. And so I think it's important that you share it for sure.
Let's just dive in.
So I'm going to kind of lead us through this and ask questions and hopefully do the best I can to to ask the right questions. But let's just start from like, you know, your family life when you were young. What was that like growing up?
I had an outstanding family life. I was born in Enterprise, Alabama. Not going to give the year because that does tell me that I'm old. No, I was born in 1972. Enterprise, Alabama. I was born to John and Kay Duhame, two of the greatest people on the planet. My dad's recently, I say recently, but within 4 years, passed away. Incredibly devout Christian man. And obviously he had, his ride through life. He was a devoted husband, a devoted father, worked hard all his life, and he was an incredible businessman as well. And through all that, I had one sister. Her name is Emily.
Shout out to Emily.
Hey, Emily, how are you? She's a very big supporter of our
Yes.
what we do here, and we appreciate that so much, Emily. Thank you. But we just had a good life. We had, we weren't rich, obviously, but we weren't poor, and we, average middle class family. We didn't want for anything. We were taught the value of hard work. We were taught the value of morals. Excuse me. I need to preface if I have a few little hiccups in my speech, and we can talk about that later on as to why. Mm-hmm. So I just want to.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard for me to get my sentences completed. Not all the time, but sometimes. Mm-hmm. We had a really good upbringing. It was just great, and so there's nothing really stood out there. I love sports. I love to hunt. I love all things guy. Guy things. Back in the time. And
was there like a really heavy influence for you guys to go to church and do that kind of stuff? Or
when I was growing up, we went to church. We went to the larger churches. We were Methodist. Excuse me. Or my mom and dad actually attended when I was born. I was born Catholic.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was born Catholic. I was born, and I was baptized as a baby in a Catholic church. My dad was, I believe, raised Catholic. My mother was not.
Okay. That's an interesting
It is an interesting combination, yeah. But and we attended a Catholic church up to a certain point, and I was real small, so I don't remember a whole lot about it. And I remember, one day we kind of stopped going to church, and then when I got a little bit older, I was 11, 12. We started going back again. I think there was a fallout between the father at the church that we were attending and my parents, and it kind of jaded my dad a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. And I could be telling this wrong, and my mom will probably chime in somewhere and say, hey, no, that's not what happened. But I believe that's what happened. And so we didn't always go to church, but we always were taught right and wrong. Mm-hmm. And you stand up for what's right. You don't tell lies. You do the right thing. You work hard. My dad always pressed that. And he was always one you stand up for, for the weaker ones. And I say weaker ones, not being, but you stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves. You stand up for your mom. Whoa, man, if you ever did anything towards my mother, man, my dad would go crazy. But, and that's where I get that. But we started going back to church again, 11, 12 years old. And we started going to Methodist churches. I think my mom and dad had really had a bad taste in their mouth for the Catholics or churches. And but it wasn't like really super consistent all the time. So I was raised with a belief of, in a higher power, in God and Jesus, but it wasn't like super pressed on us all the time.
I got you. So what about the law enforcement side? Like, was your dad? Were your parents in law enforcement or military or?
No, it's funny kind of how I got into being a cop. It's really kind of comical. So my entire family, my uncle, my granddad, my dad, they were all Army. My uncle retired out of Special Forces. He was a Green Beret. I want to say he was a lieutenant colonel. He was pretty high up. My granddad was a World War II Korean veteran. Both my granddads.
Wow.
My granddad on my dad's side was 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne. I mean, this man was a warrior.
Wow. Yeah,
and he retired
awesome.
with a full military career, and then he went into as an ROTC instructor and retired out of that. So it was always a military kind of background with my family.
Right.
But so latter part of my teenage years, my mom and dad took my great grandparents in, and there's a long story there. They both had Alzheimer's, and then one had dementia, and it was just they couldn't see them going into a home, so they took them in to take care of them. And you can imagine how much stress that caused on a 16, 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And I was really being selfish. It shouldn't have been about me at all, but I was, and as 16, 17-year-old children are.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of strife between my dad and I. So that kind of rocked on for a little bit, and there was, things got heated multiple times. As to me, looking back, I was in the wrong. There's no doubt about it. I was in the wrong because that did create a lot of stress for my dad as well. But at 18 years old, I was like, man, I got to get out of here. I got to go. And the girl that I was dating, we were both, fresh out of high school. We said she wanted to get out of her house. I was like, well, let's get married. So we got married at 18 years.
Okay.
Not the
Wow.
smartest decision that you could make.
Well-
we had no idea what we were doing. There were reasons behind it, but that was, and I don't want to bring up any of that because I don't want to disrespect, my wife now, because my wife now is one of the biggest blessings in my life, which I'll get to in a little bit. But no, I mean, I had to get out of the house. So at about 15 years old, it kind of came to me, I was a product of the Hollywood era back then, so I knew I always wanted to do something like that. I wasn't some guy that was going to sit behind a desk. I didn't want to. That seemed boring to me. I wanted to make a lot of money. Everybody did back then. It was go to college, get a good job, have a good career. It was the American dream, right?
Right.
But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something where I was, my hair was on fire and I was, running down the road.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what to do. And I was a product of the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis, all those guys. And they were always in the movies being cops, right?
Yeah,
So I was like,
yeah.
that's what I got to do.
Right.
I want to go do that.
Right.
The movie, what was that movie? Mel Gibson was in it.
The Patriot?
No, Lethal Weapon.
Oh, Lethal Weapon.
All right, the
Okay.
movie Weapon, or one of those times. Sorry,
No, you're good.
the movie series, Lethal Weapon.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to be Martin Riggs. I wanted to be Mel Gibson's character, and I wanted to be him so bad. He was so cool, Little did I know after I became a police officer, it was nothing like it is in the movies. Not a thing.
Right.
So, but yeah, I wanted to be, I wanted to be a cop. Well, time rocks on, and after I moved out of my mom and dad's house, I got a regular job and didn't think too much about it. But I was 21 years old, and I was sitting in church because at that time I had legitimately been saved at 16 years old, and that's an amazing story right there in and of itself. I know, I've no doubt about it. I had a God moment, and I received my salvation at that point. And we were going to church. And I remember sitting in church, regular attendee. I was there, and trying to do the right thing. And I remember sitting in church, and it's like something hit me in the back of the head. And I know that nobody else in the church heard this audible voice. It was me. Something hit me in the back of the head and says, "You're going to be a police officer. I need you in that line of work." And I was like, "Man, you got it. Roger that. I'm going to do it." And so I did. I applied with the Dothan Auxiliary. Immediately. And the auxiliary at the time was it's kind of like Army Reserve.
Okay.
So it's a volunteer thing. Dothan had at the time, and volunteer police officers, they would go ride with other officers, and they obviously didn't have all the authority that a sworn full-time police officer would have. It got my foot in the door, and did as many training classes as I could, got as much certification as I could, and through all that, I got hired into a small department that was really kind of an attachment to the Dothan Police Department. It's a department of its own, and they've kind of blossomed into their own. They're separate now anyway, but it was the Dothan Airport Police, and a lot of guys would do that, especially young guys, because you could get sent to the academy. And then the way that A-Post works is you have to be sponsored by an agency. And now they've made all kind of different things that you can do. You can go to reserve academies and this and that, and your certifications are the same. It takes a little longer, but you always have to be sponsored. And back then, I don't believe any of that was there. You had to get hired by a department to be sent to an academy.
Oh, okay.
So, I wanted it that bad. I took the job. Apparently, I impressed the airport manager who used to, he would attend a lot of the police trainings because he was a big police supporter, and he wanted to know what his officers that worked under him out there, had to go through. And a really good guy named Art Morris. He offered me a job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was making $6 an hour as a police officer, my first job. And
wow.
yeah, and I was proud to have it. Excuse me,
Yeah.
I got to make sure that this isn't.
Oh, you're fine.
No, that's good.
But yeah, $6 an hour. That's like,
And I was killing it. Right?
was that a lot of, was that, I mean,
Well,
back
I
then.
mean, you got to think it was 94 when I got hired in my
Yeah.
first, because this year will be my 30th year. And it didn't matter. And that's the thing, it didn't matter. He could have said, hey, man, I want to hire you and bring you in, but I can't pay you right now. And I'd have probably said, okay,
Still,
that's cool.
yeah, like you
Because
just I want to be there.
I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be the difference between evil, prevailing and evil being conquered. That's what I wanted to go save the world.
Right.
That's why I was very, very idealistic at the time.
Wow.
And so I took that job, and I was sent to the police academy, graduated the police academy. I was sent to EMT school, graduated EMT school. I got everything that I could get, man. I was trying to soak everything up like a sponge. And in 1996, January of 1996, I was hired by the Dothan Police Department.
Okay.
And at the time, it's funny how my progression into it, and I know that's how that it was kind of inspired by God, or that was my calling, because it was so easy for me to get into it. Back then in 94, when Dothan would announce that they had positions open for police officers, there'd be, good grief, the Civic Center would be full. I mean, we had to do our testing on 2 different sessions. And I was able to get hired out of like 500 applicants.
Really?
The first time that I tried. And I'm sure the other guys have that same story, but it was just really, really easy.
Yeah.
So in January of 1996, I got hired with the Dothan Police Department.
Real quick, before we go on, what were you like as a teenager? Like, were you the kid that just did everything right and like followed the rules and thought the rules were there for a reason? Or were you the one that was like, the rules are there to be broken?
Yes. That's an ode to Terry Harris. We had him on the start. No, I was, I don't really know what, you hit me with a question I don't really know how to answer.
Oh,
What was I
wow,
like as
really?
a teenager, man? I always had the sense of moral guidance. Okay, you shouldn't do this, don't do that. I was brought up that way. I always liked to have the excitement. I always wanted to have the excitement. I always wanted to be doing something.
Did you get in trouble a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. Yeah, I did. Some kind of called me a class clown.
Okay.
Which really scares me because my 7-year-old Paxton is
It's kind of that way.
he's kind of that way. So I don't know what to expect when he gets in high school. I had I was a straight A student all the way through like 8th grade.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I never cracked a book.
Oh, wow.
All the way through like 8th grade, I was smart.
Yeah. You just had the ability to. There's just some people like that. Like my wife is like that. Like she doesn't have to study or think really too hard about anything, and she just passes with flying colors. As for me, I have to sit there and
Well,
stinking.
now understand something. Okay, so that was up till 8th grade.
Oh, okay.
Okay, in 9th grade and in Dothan, Alabama, I went to Dothan High School. 9th grade through 12th grade was your high school time. All right. So when I hit high school, I expected everything to be just like it was
Right.
when I was in middle school and grade school and whatever else, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, and I also was looking at it like it was one big party, and I had a great time until I did. I had a great time.
Yeah.
Until my grades started dropping, and I spent most of my time in trouble with my parents or in trouble with school. The principal had back then you would get you could get paddled at school, and I got paddled regularly. He had
Oh my gosh.
it would be one of those things where, all right, come on in here. He'd pull his special paddle out. I'm like, all right, here we go again. But I mean, it wasn't nothing. I wasn't like, out stealing stuff and doing things like that. I was just typical teenage shenanigans.
Gotcha.
And because I just thought they were fun.
Yeah.
But I always had that, I always had that I want to be, I needed to be doing something. I lifted weights at, I want to say 17. I started training in martial arts and moved up through that pretty high. Black belt in Taekwondo, black belt in Yoshikai Karate. And throughout my rest of the time, that's just a whole different story. I studied that on, although not so much anymore, just regularly, but all the way through.
Okay,
that's kind of what I was like.
What was your personality, and then now you're like going into law enforcement.
I tell you what, that's actually a good way to go into my salvation story.
Oh, okay.
Because it was at 16 when I got saved, and so there was this evangelistic, and we'll call it a crusade because that's what it was called. It was called the J-Strack Crusade. It was a week-long event that took place at Rip Hughes Stadium, and this guy went around the country, and I'm assuming other places as well. I had never heard of this guy named J-Strack, and I've looked him up many times since then, and he's, I believe, still active. And I remember everybody was going to it. It was a Monday through Friday event. Everybody would go. Every night they would go. A lot of my friends would go, and they were like, "Man, come with us." I'm like, "I don't want to go see that. It's boring."
Yeah.
I got other things to do. I want to go. Unfortunately, I like to get into the physical altercation from time to time. So that's boring to me. But I don't want to do that. And the last night of that. Everybody talked me into going. There was a bunch of girls that were going, a bunch of my buddies were going. I was like, all right, fine, man, I'll go. Didn't have nothing else to do, right? Everybody's going to that, so I didn't have anybody to hang out with. And I went. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really paying attention through the first portion of, the message that night. But apparently, with as much that was being said, things started to sink in. And I remember when it was over, I was just like, man, that was amazing. But I didn't act on anything. This evangelist that, I had no idea who this dude was. It's calling people down from the stadium, and people are filling the field. It's just this huge movement, and people are getting saved. And I didn't do anything. I was too embarrassed. I was like, I'm not going down there.
Oh wow.
I'm not going to go down there. People will think that I'm, a bad person, or people will think that he needs it.
Right.
And I didn't want anybody to look at me and laugh. And so it ends. All my buddies and I walk out. All our friends walk out, and I get in my car, and I pull out of the stadium. I pull down Stadium Street. I turn on South Park, and I'm going home. Right.
Yeah.
And it's probably 10:30-ish, somewhere in there. And again, this is one of those audible voice moments, And I'm riding down the road, man, and there's just like this something that just keeps pulling you. And I know you felt it, man. If you've ever, you feel it. And it's something that just keeps pulling, and I'm like, man, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, man, and again, I'm sure that nobody, if they'd have been sitting in the car, would have heard this.
Yeah.
Son, turn around. I was driving a 1968 Camaro, man. You saw the fastest U-turn you ever saw. I was like, okay, what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I flipped a UE right there on South Park. And the only thing that I could think, man, is I got to get saved. I have to get saved. I cannot go to bed tonight. I cannot go home. I have to get saved. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I drive back to the stadium. I'm like, okay, that's where this came from. I got to go back to the stadium, right?
I got to go back there. Yeah.
So I drive to the stadium, and when I get to the stadium, it's black. It's dark. Everybody's gone. And I'm like, what do I do? Oh no! I need this. What do I do? There was one street light, and I say street light, inside the stadium parking lot. You have these street lights that are up, and it was one light that was on, and it was like there was a gold Ford Ranger. I remember it. and like a dingy gold. It wasn't like, whoa.
Yeah, right.
But it was a gold Ford Ranger, and there was a guy standing there. I can still tell you what his, blue shirt. If I remember right, it was a blue shirt, like tan pants or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Short, sandy blonde hair. I remember that too. I mean, probably late 20s, early 30s, somewhere in there, something like that.
Yeah.
And I pulled up, and I didn't pull up right on him.
Mm-hmm.
But I pulled up and I got out of my car, and I'm just looking around, and he's looking at me like, "Can I help you?"
Mm.
And the only thing I could think as a 16-year-old naive kid was, I need to see Mr. Strack. The main evangelist.
The guy.
Speaking,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
guy,
yeah.
And he looked at me and said, "Son, Mr. Strack's gone." And I was like, kind of like, He said, "There's something I can help you with?" I was like, "I need to get saved." And he said, "Son, I can help you with that."
Wow.
It's kind of an emotional thing. Sometimes I cry, man.
Yeah, no,
Leave me alone.
that's awesome. No, that's great, man.
And I don't want everybody out there to think, sometimes the tears come up.
No, it should be.
But he said, "I can help you with that." And I was like, "Oh." And I got into this. Now, okay, understand this. I would never tell, a kid or a minor to get into a car with somebody they don't know.
Right. All the red flags go up.
All the red flags are up right now.
Yeah.
But at 16 years old, I sat in this guy that I have no idea who he was, in this Ford Ranger, and I accepted Jesus at that point.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I cried. I think he cried. I don't remember if he cried or not. Man, I was squalled like a baby. And it was so real. It was so powerful. And I know there's not a thing in the world that could ever tell me that my salvation was not real that night. And after 10, 15 minutes, I don't remember what it was, I got up, I wiped my eyes best I could, and I think I hugged him and thank you. I don't even know his name. I walked back to my car, and here's where the kind of what just happened moment happened. I got in my car, I shut my door, and I just sat there for a minute. I never heard a car crank up. I never saw lights leave. And I think I was going to get up, go say something to him, because there was something else I needed to say. I don't remember what it was, but as I opened my door and looked back out, ain't nothing there. Nothing's there. I never saw that. And look, man, I would like to think that was some divine thing.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm sure that in the moment I probably just missed it. But at the same time, did I?
You never know. You really don't know, though.
It was just, I was like, I'm looking around, where'd he go?
Yeah. Yeah. And you had that voice tell you to turn around, and you don't know why for that moment.
I really believe there's nothing that can ever say that, that wasn't real.
Yeah.
That was incredibly real. And at that moment, I knew Jesus Christ was real. He's the Son of God. He did everything that he did for us and died a horrifying death. Horrifying death. And that's another podcast if we want to, just the literal death that he went through.
Yeah.
And then, he's sitting at the right hand of God now, and I know that.
Right.
So that was my story of my salvation. So from 16 years on, and I'm not going to sit there and say that I was a perfect kid,
Yeah.
but I had that in my life at that point.
Right.
And I don't know if God used that to kind of drive what he wanted me to do, become a police officer and try to right the wrongs of the world. But then, going back to my time at Dothan PD, so in 96, I got hired. And I would have told you that I had made it, man. At 20, I think I was 22 when I got hired with Dothan or something like that. I had made it to the pinnacle of law enforcement. That was my mindset.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because Dothan, the heck with LAPD, the heck with the NYPD, the heck with any federal agency. I'd made it to Dothan PD, and in my mind, that was the pinnacle of law enforcement.
Wow.
I was there.
Yeah.
Now it was just, can I stay?
Are they going to keep me?
Yeah, they're going to keep me.
Yeah.
And I was, man, when I got out of FTO, field training officer program, because you have to, when you go in, whether you're certified or not, you're going to go through an FTO program, which is they're going to, you've got the baseline teaching, but they're going to teach you the way that their department wants it done. And that's any department out there.
Okay, yeah, right.
And those can be anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 months. It just depends on the department. Ours was a 6-week course, and we were the first. The guys that I got hired with, we were the first to start implementing that true 6-week plus. It's even longer now. FTO program.
Okay.
And man, as soon as I got out of FTO, man, I hit the ground running, just as hard as I could go. I was gonna save the world as a police officer. I
Wow.
was on fire, man. I was gonna throw as many bad guys in jail. I was gonna save people. I was gonna get cats out of trees. I was gonna, do all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the things started to. I'm not gonna say go downhill, but they kind of started to go downhill at that point. Now, don't get me wrong. I had a very interesting 30 years in law enforcement and in the service related fields. But man, I tell you, as I look back, I can pick the points in my career where I started to see myself degrading in my moral. When my moral compass got broke. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. But right, like you had your set of principles, and then slowly. And I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. Was as you taint your conscience, right? As you do certain things that you're not sure about, or just they're kind of not, they're questionable, but they're not set in stone. You can slowly drift away from the things
You can.
Yeah.
And it's not okay. So my integrity, I always felt like I kept it as high as I could. And my principles, you had to stand on your principles because if you didn't, that's really all you had, as a police officer. Because many times you're out there by yourself and, you had backup available and stuff like that. But you might go to a call and this guy might not have the same moral compass that you do. And look, there's a huge number of amazing law enforcement officers out there. And but there's, you do run into those that are like, nah, we're going to do this. If you don't have that in you, just stand up and say, nah, that's not right. We're not going to do that. You're going to start seeing that downhill go fast.
Yeah, right.
Now, I'm not going to sit there and say I did anything that was ever illegal. It's not what I did. But a lot of your downhill spiral comes from the things that you see as a police officer. And look, I would never take anything away from the men and women that serve in our military. That is to go into a hostile environment, a wartime environment, leave your family for extended periods of time, go into combat where, you expect that, you're going to kill somebody or you're going to see people die. That's just not, you have to hold these people in high regard.
Yeah.
But we forget a lot of times about the law enforcement community because law enforcement officers deploy every day. Servicemen and women, they deploy and then they come home.
Right.
Law enforcement officers deploy every day, and they deploy every day in their backyard. So not only do they have, the possibility of going into these very what we call non-permissive environments where you may not walk out of there, but you have to do it with people that you grew up with, people that people that you live with,
right?
On a regular daily basis. So over time, when police officers do this for let's say that they finish a career, and they've done studies, and I don't have the numbers as far as it, but a police officer will have the equivalent of like 8 deployments or something like that. I'd have to look it up. But
wow. Yeah, that's super interesting.
So when you look at that and you look at all the things, especially if you work in an area where you have a really, really high call volume, or if you work in those investigative units where you're going out and looking for the stuff, or you're responding to every bad thing that happens, you start to. There's just no measure of the amount of horror that you'll see.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's in your own backyard. So, like you said, the horror you're seeing, I think military can. And like you said, I'm not saying that's any less, but they go and they come back, like you said, and that's all there. Whereas,
understand something. When they come back, it's not all there.
Yeah, yeah.
They
but
bring a lot of it.
They bring it back
here,
here, but
and that's bad.
right. What I'm saying is they don't know those people,
Right. Yeah.
and law enforcement officers, they know the people, and they deal with these people, and what they're bringing back home is, friends, family, maybe, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is, like people they've grown up with, seeing a lot of this stuff, people they've heard about,
Mm-hmm.
from friends, and so yeah, that can be. I could see how that could be super
And
difficult.
it can be rough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through all these. We do our crime chronicles, and I can tell stories about that. I'm not going to go through all the stories, but I did.
Yeah.
So if you go back into the military side of things, and I was never in the Army itself. I was fortunate to, and really was just fortunate to be able to work on 3 different contracts for the Army as a contractor. But I never did anything like soldiers do, and I have the utmost respect for servicemen and women.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring these things back, and they say that there's upwards of 22 suicides a day by veterans. And I reflect on, well, what's the number for law enforcement? And I think I read something in 2023. It was either 116 or 100. It was like 100, somewhere around 120, give or take. Police officers throughout the nation committed suicide, and I said that there's absolutely no way that's correct.
A day?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
For the year.
For the year.
And I'm sitting there going, that can be correct, because I know guys around here
Yeah.
that have committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And as I start reading into that, you start understanding why the numbers are so low is because they're underreported. And for whatever reason, either the department wants to not bring a negative outlook on them, or maybe they're trying to protect the family, or maybe it's an insurance. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's underreported. The level of mental wellness, up until recently, has kind of been ignored
Wow.
in law enforcement. We were always just supposed to pack it down. Man, you got to just keep going, pack it down, keep going. That's just what we do. And,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it can affect everything from your health,
Right.
mental state.
Right.
And like
Yeah.
I said, not getting, we don't have time to go into all the different things that happen, but I remember,
Before you do that,
yeah.
let's take a real quick break,
Okay.
because I should be good. Okay. We're back. We had to take a short break. We had to fix our camera and take a bathroom break. So now we're going to continue with Eric's testimony. And he was just going to share probably an example of what he was talking about just a second ago.
I mean, yeah, in law enforcement, like I said, the things that you see, man, I've had a baby die in my arms. That was tough. I was with Dothan for 10 years, and man, we were going full speed. I had to go full speed. I wanted to chase the bad guys. I want to put them in jail. I want to do all that. And there's a lot of stories in my time with Dothan. We don't really have time for all that today. I did a lot of stuff. I was the team leader. Andy and I kind of went back and forth as team leader for the TAC team. And I was able to get on TAC team within my first year. It was like the end of my first year there, which normally wouldn't have happened. And that's one of the things that I was passionate about. I really wanted to do. So we were able to just go and go and go all the time. And we did a lot of stuff. So I had that team under me for a while. Then when I left Dothan, I went to a different county. And my time doing that, I've had 3 different TAC teams under me. And that's always been a passion. So I got to where I was hunting people all the time. I was a supervisor over an investigative task force, and it was tasked with narcotics and high crimes and violent crimes and everything like that. So we're always going after somebody. I was always hunting what I called monsters. And we had a lot of raids that we did, a lot of tactical operations, and there was a lot of things I did. So through all that, you see a lot of death. Not that we caused a lot of death. I have been involved in shootings, and no matter what anybody says, no matter what the movies make about it, they are not fun. They are not glamorous. They are horrifying. They're terrible. And I can still, the first one again, I can still see the guy's face, to this day, and that was back in 99, 2000, somewhere around there. And so moving forward, you know, you see so much, and you pack it down, and you pack it down, you pack it down. I remember a guy blew his brains out in front of me. And I mean, literally in front of me and my partner. And there's just so many things that you see, and you pack it down, and you pack it down, and you pack it down. And in this, it starts to cause you, you know, that's what I talk about, that downhill slide that you start making. You got to find a way to deal with this. You know, obviously the way to deal with it is you need to have regular sessions with somebody you can talk to, unload a lot of this stuff. You know, your faith has got to be strong. Well, during my time in this, you know, I told you I was regularly going to church. Well, that kind of stopped. You know, it was more important for me to be a cop. It was more important for me to be on the go, be on the run. And in that, I started to see me. It's weird because I want to say not my integrity, because in my job, I was always going to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
But in my personal life is where started seeing things fall. Because, you know, I put up this facade on one side that, man, I got this. I'm good, you know. But in my personal life, man, it was a train wreck. I was a dumpster fire following a diesel truck. You know, it was that bad.
Yeah.
And series after series after series of just horrible personal life things, you know, divorces, you know, just truly become a monster myself. And you start seeing, you know, this is what we did. You know, when we were off, we got drunk. You know, that's what we did.
Yeah.
That's how we dealt with things. You know, there's an old saying that nobody parties harder than cops. You know, when they're off, because they got to let off that steam, they got to blow it off all, you know, the stuff they see and do.
Right.
And man, I adhered to that. You know, and I watched. It's almost like I knew I was doing it, but either I didn't care, or for some reason I just couldn't stop it. And so time goes on, and it got to the point of we call it self-medicating. And there's just all kind of different ways you can self-medicate. You can self-medicate with, you know, alcohol, with pills, with, you know, illicit drugs and pornography. You can self-medicate with all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Never got into the illicit drugs or the pills, you know, but man, you talk about consuming some alcohol. Without being, you know, medically diagnosed as an alcoholic, I would tell you that if I wasn't working or at the gym, then I was either drunk at home or in a bar somewhere. And I'm not proud of that. That is the wrong way to handle those things, you know. But that's what I did.
Right.
And I thought that I was expected to do that, you know. You know, you had to be this, man, this guy he can go at it when he's at work. Man, when we go party, he can go at it just as hard, you know. And in that, you know, you should realize that you have a problem if you're at home and you are putting down, you know, half a bottle of liquor or, you know, a case of beer a night, you know, whatever. And look, I'm not villainizing, you know, drinking alcohol. There's you can have a beer with, you know, your dinner. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it becomes something that consumes you and takes you over, now you've allowed that to grab you. Right. And that's a monster in and of itself.
Right.
And fast forward to Eric and I have been married for 9 years now. Just before that, shortly before the year before that, I had gone through a very bad divorce and should have never been in that in any way. But in doing so, I mean, I lost everything. I lost my home. I lost, you know, my kids as far as relationships with them. And I was probably and it's not because I went through a divorce. I mean, okay, whatever, man. That wasn't supposed to be anyway. But I was in a dark place. I had gone from, I was this supervisor over this unit, and still, what I would call a successful law enforcement officer. I was living in a 2-room loft-style apartment over a barn that, one of my buddies on the squad, his mother had, and I mean, I didn't have nothing. But what was I doing? I was still going out when I was off. I was still drinking every night. I was still just damaging myself, and I knew I was there. I knew I was in that downward spiral. I didn't care. I'd gotten to that point. And
Right, like you had become apathetic, like just numb to.
numb.
Doing that.
Just like, well, this is my life.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
this is what I'm supposed to do. I'll do this, and then I'll go, catch the bad guys again, and then I'll come back and I'll do this. And
Right.
I was at that point.
Mm.
And I remember going out with, this was the turning point for me. And I need to preface this because in no way computer went off.
Yeah.
Are we recording?
No. It's okay though. I didn't want to stop us.
So in no way am I suicidal. I've never been suicidal. I've always been that guy that says, hey, if you ever go to a call and they say Duham committed suicide, you need to investigate that because that's not true. Because I have my beliefs on suicide. I really do. And eternity in hell is just not something that I want to spend. And there's, whatever people believe about that. That's my personal belief. But kind of the turning point for me was I woke up one morning. I went out with some of my buddies, and they said I just got up and walked away. I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that at all. And I remember waking up the next morning. I was in my bed, thank God. And my phone, I had I couldn't tell you how many missed calls, messages from my old partner, Tom Flathman, who is like a brother to me. We went through a lot of stuff. That man has stood behind me, stood beside me, and we have been through a lot of stuff. And I mean, he's like a brother to me. And obviously I'm hungover, right? And I grabbed the phone and I called him. I said, dude, what? What is the big, what's going on? And he was mad. He was kind of a cross between, okay, he's okay. But at the same time, dude, what, I'm like, what is it? And he said, man, I had everybody down there looking for you. I said, why? I don't remember. He said, you're riding around with a gun to your head all night long. I am not a suicidal person. The only thing I could think is everybody has a breaking point. And I guess at that point, I had hit that point where I was like, man, I don't know what I was thinking because I don't remember the event, right? And I said, dude, you're full of it, man. There's no way I did that. That didn't happen. A few other words went through there, and I hung up on the phone, or hung up with him. And walked down to my car, and there's my vehicle, doors open, guns on the seat. And it was a personal weapon of mine, so it wasn't, a Glock. Glocks don't have a external hammer or any external, This one was an older style weapon. It had an external, hammer, and the hammer was cocked.
Oh, wow.
And I just sat there for a minute. I remember staring at it like, I've hit that point. And the only thing I can think that makes any sense to me is that God slapped me upside the back of the head again. And he stuck his thumb between the hammer and the firing pin and didn't allow me to do anything.
Wow.
Because as we've moved forward now, I can understand that he's got an even bigger purpose for me. And that was the starting point of it.
Wow.
Give or take a day or two, whatever it is. Shortly after, my wife came into my life. And I truly believe that he sent her to me to start me on the journey I'm on. I give her so much credit because she she has been a rock for me. I mean, literally.
Wow.
Sorry. Literally a rock. She's an amazing woman. She's kept me grounded. Man, she's believed in me when I lost all belief in myself, you know. And we've been married for 9 years now, and she's the most amazing thing ever. And she's actually got me, you know, dude, to sit there and say that was a starting point. Now, obviously, I didn't sit there and, you know, flip over and the white hat and all that.
Yeah, right.
It was a progression to it. But I don't want to say, you know, give her, God gets the glory for this because God did this to me. He flipped me.
Yeah.
He turned me into what he wanted me to be. And everybody, you know, maybe I had to go through all that stuff to get to where I am now. I don't know. But he gets the glory for all that.
Yeah.
But God will use people, and I truly
Absolutely.
believe that. And there's 100%, you know, belief that he used her to get me where I am.
Yes. Yeah, and that's definitely key to it is God doesn't need us, but he uses us.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to use us, and in that, you know, he used her to do that with you.
Oh, 100%.
You know, and that's an honor.
And the thing is, you know, there was confirmation of that. I had no intention of ever getting married again, ever having. I didn't want any more kids, man. I mean, I would. Period. Didn't want any more. You know, I had 2 kids that were almost fully grown. I didn't want to go through that again. And within just a few months of us getting married, we both sat down at a table one day and we looked at each other and went, let's have a baby. And I mean, it's something that just was like, God said, okay, you're going to have a baby. My son is going to, Paxton Duhame is going to do something big because he is proof to me that God put Erica and I together. And for whatever, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not to take anything away from any of my other children. My other children are outstanding. They're going to do big things too, you know.
But in that moment,
it was just confirmation that, you know,
right.
God is working in our life.
And God does that. You know, like people in the Old Testament, even, you know, when they had children, they named their children for the things that they feel like children mark pivotal moments in our life a lot of times.
Yeah.
You know, and people will do that and say, you know, or they would do that in the Old Testament. They would name them according to the moment that they experienced with that child. Which Hosea is an example of that. Not a great example because the names he gives them mark really poor times in his life. But you know, names are an important thing. But children are a blessing in that they do something to you and give you an opportunity to mark important times in your life. You know? That
one, and I mean, it was a true blessing.
Yeah.
I mean, and confirmation to me and to her, because she was in, you know, and what's funny is, I mean, and it's her story to tell, you know, but she was in an equally, you know, I don't want to say equally, but she was in a, you know, not in the best place either. And it's just funny to me how God will take 2 people that are broken and bring them together to use them to show the world how much he can do.
Oh yeah.
And when that happens, it's just an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And all of that, not only did it produce a child that I believe is going to do big things and confirm things for me, but it put both of us on a path to where we are now.
Right.
And if you'd have ever told me that I would be sitting in the dining area where we do our podcast of a business or a restaurant or whatever we want to call this, that my wife and I own, I'd say, man, you're crazy.
Right.
This is not going to happen.
Right.
If you'd ever told me that I would be with 2 other guys that are very strong in their faith hosting a podcast where that's what we try to push is our faith in Jesus Christ and inspire men to have that same faith and do the same thing, I'd have said, man, you're crazy. The things that I've done, that ain't going to happen, you know? And real quick story. I know we're kind of running late, but
There you go.
real quick story. So I don't know how much more time I've got in law enforcement. I haven't worked in the past few months because, and I'm going to tell you this story right now because it's another true testament of how God will take care of you. And it was here in Headland because I went to work for Headland PD, so I could be close to our business. Stay involved in law enforcement, have a steady paycheck, and be close to the business so I could do what needs to be done here and help. And I was responding to a call, and I'm not going to get into all the details because some of it's still being looked at, but I was responding to a call, had all my emergency equipment on, and I got into a really, really bad crash. And I don't remember the crash. I remember the impact. Everything after that, I don't remember anything. It was an F-550, big truck, hit me at highway speeds. The report stated 65. I think it was faster than that. But long story short, I got broadsided and knocked from one side of the highway all the way across to the other. And there's no reason I should have walked out of that.
Yeah.
If you've seen the pictures of the car, and I mean this crash not only totaled my car, totaled the truck they hit me, and it totaled another car that was sitting still that the truck veered off and hit. I mean this was a massive impact.
Right.
Completely caved in the passenger side of my car.
Yeah.
Next thing I remember was looking up at a dude while I'm laying on the ground and asking him if he can help me. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then I'm in and out of it. I spent some time in the hospital. I've been diagnosed with a TBI, since then, and it has caused a few issues. So, we're still dealing with that, but the takeaway from all that was, there's a lot of times that I'll have somebody ride with me in the passenger seat. Somebody either I'm training. There was a young kid. He's in the academy now, but he would ride with me on a regular basis because I was trying to get him ready to go to the academy and train him. Had he been in that car, and he was on duty that day, I was supposed to pick him up, I believe. Had he been in that car, he'd be dead. And there's really no reason that I should have walked away from that.
Right.
I am a firm believer that there was somebody else in that passenger seat that day, and whether it was a guardian angel, whether it was Jesus himself, it saved me.
Right.
And my wife has said, you need to look at that as, she said, you know what? God may be trying to tell you right now that he's got another purpose for you. And I think that he does. Which kind of goes into what I said before. Maybe all the stuff I went through, that I saw, that I did, that I self-inflicted upon myself. Maybe I went through all that to get me where I am now.
Right.
Because right now, I want people to see Jesus.
Yeah.
I want I've watched things with, SEALs come back from, and I'm talking, when I say SEALs, I'm talking about Deborah SEALs, SEAL Team 6. These guys are like the tip of the spear, Delta guys coming back. And, the one thing that they all have in common is, they come back and they have an increased faith. How do you do that? Well, there's only one way that you do the things that you do, and then you move past them. There's only one way that your life means anything at all. And when you hit that point, you realize that it's your faith in Jesus Christ. That's the only answer there is.
Right.
And maybe we all had to go through the things that we went through to get us to that point.
Right.
And I don't wish that anybody goes through, horrifying events in their life.
Yeah.
But man, if it'll get you to Jesus,
Yeah. It's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
It truly is worth
Right.
it. But,
Right.
not getting into huge detail, that's my testimony, man. That's
awesome.
God
That's
brought
really
me to a point of salvation, put me in a place where I was, I did the things I did for the calling that I did. I say that he saw me fall out of grace and then he extended that grace to me again. And well, for that, I mean, I live for Jesus now. I live for God. That doesn't mean that I know I got things in my life that I got to clean up and fix, but I mean, we all do. But my faith in God is stronger than it's ever been.
That's awesome. That's great, man. Really cool testimony. Really powerful, because I think there are a lot of people that are in and have been in that place of just apathy and numbness towards life in general. You know, they tried to do the right thing, but they see that there's a lot of people that they look up to that all have given up even, which causes them to kind of do the same thing, you know, and just the harshness of life, the roughness of life can get to you. But to see that, you know, God still has a plan for those that are even those that are numb to life, you know, that's awesome. And if there's anybody that's listening to this, this is for you. You know, if you feel like you're in that place, you know, it's never too late to turn to Jesus and for him to have his way with your life. It's never too late for that. You could be 80 years old. It's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. It's never too early, never too late. And so, Eric, is there anything else you want to say to end this out?
Yeah, you talk about numb. You talk about turbulence that went through. You said that early on. Turbulence, man. Everybody out there, you're going to have a story. You are going to go through hard times. Don't let life turn you numb. Don't let life defeat you.
Yeah.
There's only one way that you can, be victorious in it. And I mean, to be, cliche is Jesus.
Yeah.
That's it's not cliche. That's just truth, man.
Right.
And I hope that if anybody listening out there, my story's not some off the wall thing. There's a lot of guys that are just like me. I'm not exclusive to anything, and there's nothing special about me. There's a lot of guys that go through it. And for you guys that are listening, that you hear what I'm saying, and you may be in that point that I am, dude, there is hope. There is salvation out there. There's nothing that you have done that God will not extend that grace to you.
That's right.
And there's a way out. And the way out and the way to that new purpose that you can find, that God will give you, is through his son, through Jesus Christ.
Amen. All right.
And before I get really teary-eyed, man, I'm going to let you close this out.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's really good stuff. So let's pray. God, I just thank you for Eric, for his testimony, for his life, the life that you've given him. Lord, I pray that all the words that were spoken today, that they just strike a chord with somebody, and that they have the impact that we know you want them to have, which is to lead them to you, to glorify you. Father, we pray for all of those that are feeling that way, that are feeling numb. We pray right now that you will just step in the midst of it. You'll intercede in whatever the situation is, in the same way you did in Eric's life, so that they might see that they need you, that they return to you, even if they have that same story, that they come to you and say, I need you. My life is a wreck without you. I need you. And we just pray for these things. We know this is your heart. This is your desire, that all men would come to know you. And so we pray for it, and we believe for it, and we love you for it, that you are a God who draws us to yourself, into your love, to show your mercy and your grace on our lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.